number one best app for contractors. I actually sat down initially to write something like the number 3 best apps for contractors, and I was going to do just that, write up 3 different apps. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought that every time I sat down to write, every time I sat down to think about this, there's really only one app that comes to mind, and it's especially prevalent, I think, for me, because in my community, the world I live in, we have a lot of people who, for example, are desperately trying to go to the cloud. And there are just a couple of industries left, I think, that people still feel can't get there because of the limitations of cloud-based accounting software. And with that in mind, there's one app in particular, specifically for the construction industry, specifically for contractors, that is the app that enables you. It literally moves you over the threshold from not being able to get to QuickBooks Online to being able to get to QuickBooks Online. And not only that, but I'd argue that with this solution in place, you actually have a more robust infrastructure than you've ever had with QuickBooks Desktop in terms of how you handle the accounting and in particular the detailed job costing needed for contractors. So rather than do my own video demonstration of the app that I want to show you and answering what is the number one best app for contractors, I thought I would invite a friend of mine directly from the company itself so you could see it and hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, and get a first-hand account of everything you need to know to get started with this application. So as you're going to see starting in about 30 seconds, we're going to show you what it looks like from a clean blank slate, brand new company setting up for the first time today, how to get this filled out and start from blank, build a contract, build a job, build in the job costing, the materials, everything you need, all the way through to invoicing the customer, and of course then beginning to record the actual expenses that can be compared so that you can get all the reporting you need till your heart's content. Let's go see what this looks like from my friend Taryn directly, who works at the company Notify.
So if you want to kind of just walk you through kind of what we generally do for new companies who are getting on, I'd be happy to do that kind of stuff for you.
Yeah, so like my first question is, do I go right to QuickBooks and link it to my QBO company, or should I do some setup first?
So I always recommend, if you're going to be syncing with QuickBooks, I definitely recommend that you do set up that sync first. It's a great way to just get a lot of data in the account, and we actually give you the option to kind of clear out your account once you go live with everything. So it's definitely better to kind of start with the QuickBooks connection right off the bat.
Okay, so let me do this. Let me say, getting started with Notify. Here's my little manual, right?
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to show you a neat little trick. This is kind of like a hidden trick to getting stuff set up in Notify that could make it a little bit more of a natural flow.
Okay.
So if you go to our URL at the top of the screen here, and I'm not sure if you get this same option when you set it up as an advisor, so this is kind of why I wanted to do this. Delete where it says dashboard/overview and type in setup, and let me see if this will work for me here.
Okay.
Cool. So this is what it looks like when a new contractor starts an account with Notify, actually. Like if you go to Notify, sign up, this is actually the process that we'll take you through. So,
okay.
Yeah. So let's go to start now, and you'll see actually right off the bat, the first thing it's going to prompt you for is like, do you want to connect to QuickBooks? And so let's go ahead and hit this little connect button. We'll do some classic,
Okay, and I have some sample companies. I can connect to one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I'll give you the quick little warning of once you connect to one QuickBooks account with Notify, we more or less need you to always use that one for your Notify.
Right. Right. Sure. So we'll just do this as a test company so that.
Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to just bring up the, jumping around between like, oh, now I connect Notify to this one, now it's to this one, that one doesn't work. So.
All right. So let's say it's for Nerd Enterprises firm. There's my client list. It would be nice if they gave us a search here so I don't have to scroll through.
Yeah, I've seen some accounts where, accounts will go to connect a client account, and I see like they have the same name of one company that's like 10 different times. So like, well, we messed up 1 or 2 QBO files here. And I'm like, geez.
Right.
Kind of organize that stuff a little bit better. But
you know what, I just, I'm thinking here for a second. A couple of these are where I got like my 5 for 25 deal. So I don't necessarily want to use one of those. I wonder, should it matter if I link it to my live file? I guess, even though I'm not a construction company, well, maybe I should.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. The main purpose of this is actually to, it's actually just to get clients, vendors, and then products and services into the system. Technically, we'll grab your accounts too, but Notify doesn't keep a individual chart of accounts. It just uses your one from QuickBooks, so it's not like you need to create anything.
Okay, so this company I just linked it to is basically a shell of a company. There's
Perfect.
Nothing in there.
I mean, that'll work just fine for actually moving information back and forth anyway.
Great.
So now you can hit step 2 of 7. So this is where it's going to just ask for just company info. A lot of this is going to be for document output. You know, we'll like to throw your address and information on different proposals, invoices, that kind of stuff that you send through our system.
Oh. I'm out of order here. So obviously this is important to fill out so that when you have forms and things, the information will populate.
Yeah, exactly. This is, again, just for kind of automating the process a little bit. For what it's worth, we do a lot of custom work with documents that we like to, help people out with. So, you don't have to put it in here to change those documents once we work with you. Once it's custom, it's custom. This stuff is actually more for our internal reference. We ask contractors to fill this information out, so when we reach out to them, we know what features they're interested in. I think some of these actually will turn on and off different options in your account. You can go with other for what it's worth.
Okay, all right. I'll just go with other.
Yeah.
Currently do construction with no service dispatch. We take on a mix. Let's just say we take on a mix.
That'll actually turn on the service side of Notify, which is a neat tool. And then obviously we want to turn on AIA, huge selling point of Notify.
Yeah.
We'll just go to the next step here. And if I'm not mistaken, this actually will be a very similar screen. Yeah. This is, again, for our internal reference, what tools do you want to use, basically?
Okay. So, probably the highest ones for me or for my clients are going to be like job costing and project management, right? But I can only pick one. So,
yeah.
Here, now I can select more.
Exactly. So again, this is really just so when we get all of this data into our CRM, it says like, hey, just so you know, when you talk to Nerd Enterprises, make sure you show them job costing, make sure you show them project management, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So basically I want to say I want it all. I want everything.
Yeah, exactly. And now you can click create users now. I just went in when I was setting up your account and set up the Beatles. That's my classic that I like to do for test accounts. It's always just fun to throw them around. I play a little bit of favoritism for Paul McCartney. He always gets paid the most. This is just setting up your account. You don't really need to worry about this.
Okay. So how do I add a user from here?
Yeah. So click where it says clear data, because right now you're editing your user. You get a little star next to your name because you're an advisor. It means you're a free user. This is how we control pricing for Notify. Mobile access to Notify only means that you're going to use the smartphone app, which can do time tracking. You can do purchases from the field. You can upload images if necessary. You can submit comments. This is just where you get this information. Mobile access, you get 3 with our base package, and then you can add more for $5 per user per month.
Gotcha. All right, let me just make sure I've got Erica's email right, because Erica works with me. She actually does all the bookkeeping for, at this point, all of our clients. So this is her cell phone, obviously. Let me leave that out for this purpose. I assume I can go back and add that later.
Yeah, absolutely. And basically, these are the 2 that I set up just when I was messing around your account. But you can obviously fiddle with this. You can make a custom role here. That's how we add new roles into the system. It's just different types of worker that you have. You can have foreman, journeyman, apprentice, whatever it may be.
Yep. And then, so obviously I would have a role for a bookkeeper, I suppose, right?
Yeah. And again, this would just be for your internal account. Technically, we call anyone who uses an advisor account an advisor, but it's the same general idea at the end of the day. For direct manager, this is just for if she's going to submit any purchases. This is who has to approve anything she purchases. For approval authority, this is how much you can submit in purchases without approval. So if you want everything to go through you, you just set it to 0. If you want nothing to go through you, unlimited, it all works.
All right, so let's say up to $500, she doesn't need approval.
Exactly.
Okay, and then she's responsible for it. She'll definitely be paying bills. She'll invoice clients.
Go mobile access only. The only 2 of these that are relevant are tracks their time or is a foreman and can approve time cards. Everything else requires full access to Notify, in which you're actually logging through the web browser, not your smartphone.
Gotcha.
So that was the first thing you filled out here was type of access. You set her up as mobile only. So
I want her to have all access. So what do I do? Just user with access to Notify? Okay.
There, and then you go add user. And as soon as you hit add user here, it'll just shoot her an email.
So with this, she'll also have mobile access, but if you choose mobile access, that's all they have. Now I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so now she'll just get an email from us that says like, hey, Nerd Enterprises invited you to join Notify. Click here to set your password, log in, get some more info. Costs and rates are for labor job costing. Again, you can see I threw some stuff in here. You're making a whopping $1 million a year through Notify.
I love that.
And so you can just fill out this card to get a little bit more information into the hourly rate for your job costing.
Gotcha.
So if you don't want to plug it in as, $50 an hour, whatever it would be, then you can say like, 20 plus benefits plus taxes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We build an hourly rate using that information.
Oh, I see. So if I wanted to sort of tack payroll taxes on to what I bill clients for her time, it will do that, right? So if I said taxes would be 7.65%, right, for Social Security, Medicare. So, are you also calculating her pay for payroll purposes or no?
No, what we push to QuickBooks is just hours. Everything you do here is strictly job costing related.
I gotcha. All right, so I wouldn't want to mess with that then. Let's get that out of there. Hi, Sarah. You're muted.
Hi.
Hi. So just for context, because we're going to be putting this video up on the Fundera Ledger, so for anybody who's watching, this is Sarah, who is sort of my circle of influence's resident expert on Notify. And then Taryn, of course, I didn't properly introduce, but you're the person who works at Notify, who I go to for all questions related to Notify.
He's the man.
So the Beatles are not getting paid well here, but that's okay. That's, at this point, well, George Harrison certainly isn't doing much. Nor is John Lennon.
They're getting paid pretty well for, the amount they've been moving recently.
Right.
Overtime rules are going to be mainly for reporting at this point in time. We're actually working on adding overtime for job costing in hopefully, the coming months, weeks. We're working on it now.
You know what we need here is we need a California button, because California has such ridiculous overtime rules.
Yeah, it's definitely actually something that we're going to be working on. We're having the ability to say, like, rather than overtime earned after a certain number of hours or anything like that, also like anything outside of our company hours, which are 9 to 5, or anything outside of this, we're going to get a little bit more custom with this.
Right. So here you're saying I wouldn't really need a bookkeeper role per se, because that's part of the advisor account and she's already got that, or?
Right. So you don't need to have a bookkeeper role. If you want to have bookkeepers, costed separately and have like, well, if we consider them a bookkeeper, then we bill them at, $30 an hour. You can set up all different ways. And then billing rate is how much you bill a client. If it's euros, and budget is if I'm estimating the cost of a job, how much do I estimate for each hour of carpenter time?
Right. So, all right. So I would bill the client 150, multiplier of 3 usually, because of payroll, taxes, and everything else. So add new.
And so now that's just in your system. Technically, you don't have any carpenters in your account, so it won't make too much of a difference when you are using the system. You can always go back to add users and add carpenters and do stuff like that. You can also add the billing rate and budget rate for a foreman, for laborers.
Gotcha.
And all of this stuff, it's going to be changeable too. So if we want to keep going, we can go to the last step here. This is where we'll just set up your company logo.
Ooh. Let's get a good logo in here. I got something good.
You do?
Yeah. But no foul language.
Oh, no, of course not. Not like the last call.
We have to keep it clean. Hold on. I have a folder for marketing and social media with logos and things that I can use. So here's what I want to use for this. There it is. My authentic accountant logo.
There you go.
I was hoping you'd do that.
Yeah. All right, done. Complete setup, right? Can I have multiple logos? It almost looks like it would take another one, or would it replace it?
No, it would just replace the existing one. Although we've had the multiple logo requests, we may have to add it at some point.
Wow.
This is stuff you could ignore. This would be for, our customer support team to know, when and how to reach out to you.
I gotcha. So
That's a new step. That's nice. I like that.
Yeah, we added this just so people aren't caught off guard when we give them a call.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be funny, kind of. Oh, it's asking me to set up a new password, even though I have one.
You can use the same password. It's assuming that this is your first time logging into Notify, and you're using.
Oh, that's right, because we went over to the setup thing.
Exactly. So we're pretending that we set up for the first time right now.
All right, hang on. Let me go get my password so I can just copy and paste it in, because I literally just went in and updated. Because I guess when you set up this sort of fixed account for me, it didn't recognize the password that I had for Notify. So I had to go do the reset password thing. So
when I set up the account, I believe it usually sends an email that says, like, click here to get started. It also gives you a temporary password if you'd rather go to the login page and enter it. But
well, I clicked and it just took me right in. I didn't have to enter any login information.
Yeah, that's because that's because I jumped in first and threw a bunch of clients and vendors, and then I also threw the Beatles in your account for you.
You got the special account.
Yeah. You know, it would be funny, by the way, going back to the options for how to get in touch with me. I always love when products do things like this, like little funny kind of Easter egg kind of things, where if it had like an option for smoke signals.
I actually like that idea a lot. I bet if I pitched that one, someone might have to add it.
I always appreciate it when a developer has taken the time to do stuff like that. I was on one of my clients' websites the other day, and I was looking to see if they had a partner or affiliate program of any kind. And you know how that's usually at the very bottom of the home page?
Yeah.
So here, I'll show you this, because this is hysterical, and it's better to just see it, and then we'll get back to business. So Bilbies is a new app that I've been using a lot, and I've been working closely with the guys who own this company. Let me actually log out so we can see what their generic homepage looks like. Oh, come on. Don't be slow.
Yeah.
There. Ah. All right, let's sign out. All right, so here's their homepage when you're not logged in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was scrolling down looking for any information they might have if they had a partner program. It's maybe a little hard to read because of the image that's in the background, but it says, great job. You're a part of the elite group who scroll all the way to the bottom. Now scroll back up and join. I just love that.
That's so cool. Because you know that? We all do it that way.
Yeah.
We go to the bottom. We
I like that.
There are those of us, there are probably a lot of people who don't bother, but then there are those of us like me. I do it on every website because I'm just curious. What do they stick down at the bottom, right? So, all right. So, Terry, are we going back to the test company now?
Yes, sir. And so when you have client accounts in here, it'll say like active accounts, clients ABC, and then test company will always be an option for you to kind of mess around with your sync and everything along those lines.
Gotcha. And I love how my logo shows up there so I know exactly what planet I'm on.
Exactly. And so
and now being that this is an advisor account, so I assume somewhere there's a portal where I would just add clients to it and have a list of my clients, or?
As of right now, we connect the client account for you.
Okay.
We'll give you the ability to add your own accounts in the future. We actually had it for a while and we'd had to turn it off, and we'll bring it back. But
I got you. Okay.
Right now, basically they just sign up. You email me, say, hey, Taryn, my client signed up. This is their email. And we'll tie you in there and it'll be free for them. You don't count as one of the users.
Right. So now I'm thinking the first thing I'd want to do if I were the client or even the accountant doing this for the client is I want to set up my first project, right? So I need a client and project set up. Sarah, would you say that's accurate? You're the one who's...
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. You really, the dashboard is not something I live in right away. I recommend that you start in contract jobs. And you're just familiar with...
The dashboard definitely is going to give you more information when you have, let's call it like 5 jobs in the system, just so you have some more data in there. For what it's worth, if you want to see how we set up the QuickBooks sync before we jump in on a job, I'd be happy to show you a little bit more about that stuff.
Yeah, you want to share your screen and show us something?
Here, you know what I'll do? I'll actually request control of yours.
Okay.
Let's see. How do I even do that one?
Here, I can give you control. Remote control. Notify support, obviously, is you. You should have it.
So the button's actually kind of all over the place. You can hit here. In the bottom corner, there's a setup sync. And then if you ever want to get information on what's going on between QuickBooks and Notify, you can click this icon here, this QuickBooks icon. This is a transactions feed that shows you anything that's moved between QuickBooks and Notify, anything we've pulled, anything we pushed, anything we update.
So it's bi-directional sync, which is good because, like I said, I just linked this to a QuickBooks Online company that's a shell. It's got nothing in it. So we can create the jobs here, and those will sync over as customers?
So we can set it up so the jobs sync up as customers. It's not a default setting. We like to see if people can try to use a situation in which they don't use the sub-customer structure in QuickBooks, where they manage their jobs in Notify, since that way you don't end up with 1,000.
Oh, okay. So normally, so the setup that you prefer to see people do is where I'd sync the clients over, but the jobs don't sync at all.
Right, and the big benefit of this is that it kind of treats a sub-customer as a sub-customer, especially since so many of our clients work in a situation where, like, I have the customer, what I call Frank landowner buildings, but under him, I have 18 buildings that I do work for, and under those 18 buildings, I may do 20 jobs a year. And so we don't want to have like this crazy sub-customer structure that breaks down per job,
That makes perfect sense. So this way in QuickBooks, the customer list is kept simple. The details are all in Notify.
Exactly. That being said, we actually give you the ability to set up a sub-customer whenever you create a Notify job. It's a feature we turn on for people who like to do that. A big advantage of that is that if you do a lot of job costing in your QuickBooks account, what we'll call job costing in QuickBooks, you can enter an expense and say which sub-customer it's for, and we'll actually know which job to put it against and Notify that way. So it automates the process in that direction a little bit.
Oh, wait, yeah, all right, so that's a good point. So if I download a transaction in my QuickBooks, and you may have just said this and I may have missed the answer, so I apologize. So I just download an expense in QBO in the bank feed, and I want to code it to a particular job, but I only have clients. So how do I make sure that that goes to the right job ultimately in Notify?
So there's two ways it can go. If you have the sub-customer structure set up where every job is a sub-client, we call it jobs as sub-clients is the name of the feature. Then you can, in QuickBooks, say, here's my expense, whether it's, a cash expense, whether it's a vendor bill, whatever it may be. You can put in the customer in QuickBooks as that sub-customer that we generated. And then we'll pull it right into the right job in QuickBooks.
Okay, so that sub-customer will be in QuickBooks. I tag it and it syncs over. But what about
if you're pulling expenses in from QuickBooks to Notify? That's actually another feature that we have to turn on for you. It's not an automatic one. Again, we prefer the flow on Notify to QuickBooks. But if you're not using sub-customers in QuickBooks, but you are pulling in transactions, then we have what we call the job costing hub. And I'll get a little bit more into detail on that later, where it shows every transaction that has any kind of job cost value in Notify. You can filter it by things that came in from QuickBooks, and you can filter it by things that aren't on jobs yet. And so that way you can say, all right, show me everything I pulled in from QuickBooks that I haven't costed to a job. And you can just click each one and put it at a job.
I see. So QuickBooks, I would just tag it to the customer because that's all I have to tag it to. And then it'll show up in Notify in such a way that I can go into Notify and say, here's the actual job for that customer that it goes to. And that's the preferred workflow, right?
And you can class it too. Don't forget about that. That's a big feature.
Yeah, absolutely. We can
Classes.
actually class to every job in Notify. And I mean, the true preferred workflow for Notify and QuickBooks is that everything goes into Notify.
Yeah.
And, you'll see a little bit more about that while we go through. It really just gives you more detailed job costing, where you're not just seeing total job cost. You're seeing, my electrical installation job cost, my, framing job cost, my, drywall job cost. That's how you get the detail in Notify.
Yeah, I don't even introduce the other segment because it's more simplistic. Live in Notify. I live on the other side to support you.
Right, and so that's where I was going to go next. So it sounds like the preference really would then, once we set this up, and assuming we go with the suggested setup, which is what I would be inclined to want to do. You guys are the experts, right? So I'm going to do what you suggest and say we only have clients in QuickBooks Online. All the details are in Notify. And based on that, we want to bring the expenses into Notify and then let them flow back to QBO. So how does Notify get the expenses? Do I have a bank feed option here, or am I just taking pictures of receipts and putting it into Notify? How does the I'm probably getting ahead. We should probably like create a new job first. But
maybe we should go through this.
Yeah, we should do the steps first. So you wanted to do the QuickBooks
I just wanted to show how the QuickBooks connection works. So
right,
this is kind of how we map is how I'll put it.
I'm notorious for that, for just taking things into the weeds.
More than
this is awesome for mapping, Seth. You'll like this piece.
Okay.
Because it can be really individual and it can be high level too.
I love this. So the default expense account for a supplier, and then like if I know it's always going to get paid for out of my primary checking, I choose. I can already see right away how this works, and I love it already.
Yeah, of course. Sorry, I relocated once, and I thought I'd be more comfortable. I'm moving back to the lounge.
Like Home Depot, for example, you can assign it to its Home Depot credit card and assign generally where it's going to go for expense account.
Yeah, exactly. And so the way I like to describe this is these lines at the top. So accounts payable, obviously pretty self-explanatory. I guess maybe either we didn't.
Oh, sorry, I took the mouse over. Take it.
Either we didn't get your accounts payable from QuickBooks, or for some reason QuickBooks doesn't always automatically give you an AP account, which I always find.
Yeah, you have to post the first bill and then it creates it.
But just another little helpful hint in this transaction section, if you want to do like a sweeping poll of data from QuickBooks, you can do this get latest data from QuickBooks since. Should
I log into the QBO company that we just linked this to, just so we can quickly do whatever we need to do there? Would that help?
Yeah, we'll get that in a second. I bet I had to guess, I'd say there's probably an accounts payable in here already. But yeah, why not? Let's go to it.
Because like I said, it's literally just a shell of a company. So there's not even any transactions in there yet. So hold on, let me do this on my other screen so I don't expose proprietary information. And then once I've gotten us into the company, I will bring it over to the shared screen.
Problemo.
So this will just take a minute. Let me move my
again. You'll plug in.
Oh, you know what's interesting is it took me right into Nerd Digital. Somehow it had me logged into that company, which is weird because anyway.
It could be something cash related from when you logged in technically through Notify.
Yeah, see, so there's not even an accounts payable. Let me go create a bill. And this is something that I've noticed even in QuickBooks Desktop they do. If you create a shell of a company like this with no accounts, then, and so we wouldn't even push those vendors into QBO yet, huh?
No, I mean, anything that goes from Notify to QuickBooks is going to be a little bit more manual if in a situation like this. The sync is actually going to be way more automatic, kind of moving forward now that you're connected to QuickBooks.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just creating a supplies cost of goods sold account so just we can have something. So if I now enter this for $100 and save and close, then we will have an accounts payable account because now it needs one because I have a bill. So
bingo.
Now let's go back to Notify and I'll let you take over again.
Yeah, and so I'm going to do the same thing I showed you earlier where I could say like this get latest data from QuickBooks since. Again, this is just going to search back to February 1st and say like, hey, is there any data that we haven't gotten into Notify yet since then?
Right.
Let's see. It should take a little bit of time. Okay, so right here you see this is what our transactions feed looks like. I can see there was a complete transaction. It was a vendor that was created in QuickBooks called iSupply. And then there's account created in QuickBooks purchases, account created, accounts payable. I'm going to go ahead.
But now how come it didn't take the vendors that you created in Notify and push them into QBO, or is it not supposed to do that?
So it can push them. That's actually a more manual flow.
I see. So it doesn't need to because, again, we're like Sarah said, we're living in Notify. That's the intention.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so like moving forward, as I create the vendors, actually, they'll automatically push to your QuickBooks account.
Oh, so it doesn't push ones that were created before we set up the two. I gotcha. So that's why it's really important to make sure you link up QBO before you do anything.
Bingo.
Yeah.
it's a very specific situation, where someone's on Notify for an extended amount of time before they start on QuickBooks. But like, I'm going to come to this, ABC supply that I created in your account. I'll just hit edit, save. And now that I have a live QuickBooks connection, I can actually come back to that transactions log. And I'm going to see like a vendor create Notify ABC supply.
And what's nice too is this on the advisory level, when you get, say somebody builds 2 Home Depots, 2 Lowe's, whatever, you can go in and kind of clean this up on both sides. You get to live on the QuickBooks side and clean it up and collapse it, as well as you can prevent it from future. So it's a good gatekeeper to be able to see it.
And then another point to bring up kind of off of that, somewhat limited by QuickBooks, but also probably as it's kind of a better thing in the long run, is that let's say I did set up some Notify first, and I set up a vendor called Home Depot. And then I synced up with QuickBooks, and QuickBooks already had a vendor called Home Depot. Now that creates kind of 2 separate elements. One's a Home Depot that's Notify, one's that's QuickBooks. So they'll kind of butt heads. It won't let you connect them. We have a customer support tool where we can do that. It's a little bit technical work, and so we'll handle it on our end. But that's just something to keep in mind. So that way we don't kind of mix up 2 different things. We don't double log any transactions.
Okay, and so just so I'm clear, that's only going to come up if I created a Home Depot vendor in Notify before I linked it up to QBO.
Yeah.
And that's how I resolve conflicts. Basically, to resolve conflicts, I have to call you guys at this point.
Very specific instance. Pretty rare, but it can happen from time.
Right. So again, the moral of the story is when you start your Notify account, the first thing you should do before anything is link up your QBO account.
Right. And so we're like the kings of getting sidetracked here, but to give you a little bit more information,
I love that.
when you start a new Notify account, we start you in what we call test mode. And test mode basically means we'll take all of your QuickBooks data. So as you test Notify, you have real data, clients, vendors, items, whatever it may be to test with. But we don't push anything to QuickBooks right off the bat. And we do that just so you can play with Notify. And when you switch from test to live, the preferred action is clear out my account and start from scratch. Then there's going to be no discrepancies. But if you say keep all of my data, that's when we see that kind of mix up where it's like, oh, well, I already created this client while I was in test mode. How come it's not in QuickBooks? Because I created it in QuickBooks and now they don't match. And that's kind of the mix up. But
I gotcha.
Don't worry about that. So
it's good to know the steps. So as an advisor in this level, you understand what live means.
No, I think this is going to be really useful to people. I mean, I don't know if you already have a video like this, Taryn, but I think this is going to be really useful to people so they understand how to get started when they first start with Notify, because I'm sure it can be daunting for people if they're not experienced with this kind of stuff.
No, absolutely. We have a variety of different videos. It's actually, I do a lot of stuff for our YouTube channel just so it's a little bit easier. And I'm actually surprised how often I reach out to someone who's just started a trial of Notify and like, hey, actually, we've been watching a lot of these videos online, but thanks, I think we can figure it out.
So important resources, your YouTube channel. You have a lot of videos that will help people also get started.
I recommend it as prior, just as a user before ProAdvisor. That's exactly. And by the time he got to me, he's like, okay, what would you like me to do with this training today?
I see. So that's another important piece of advice for people starting with Notify is spend some time on the YouTube channel, even before you set up, just so you have some familiarity with what you're looking at and how it's going to work. How much has the interface changed, Taryn, over like from when you started till now? Is the interface substantially different or?
Yeah, absolutely. Almost unrecognizable, I'd say. I mean, obviously a lot of stuff like icons and phrasing and stuff like that is more or less the same. But yeah, we've added countless numbers of new tools to make everything run a little bit more smoothly since, let's call it 2 years ago. So
okay,
so, a different system now.
Perfect. All right, so let's get into this. So now we're back into you went to vendors here, right? You clicked at the top right where it says vendors?
Before I went to vendors, now I'm back to that QuickBooks feed, and I'm just kind of setting our defaults. I'm saying, here's my default expense account. Basically, what we do with default expense account, let's say Notify was as simple as saying, whenever I created an expense in Notify, push it to uncategorized expense. We're not that simple, but this is kind of how I explain what default expense account is.
Right.
The way we can get more specific with this is say, well, that would be the case with the exception of ABC Supply, where my expense account is actually and we only have one expense account, which is uncategorized expense.
So, which is going to bring up a point. If this is a brand new setup, new company, we're going to want to be able to add expense accounts. So again, do I add them here in Notify or in QBO? It sounds like I should plan on Notify being the place.
Yeah, well, no, you add all of your expense accounts in QBO. You have no way to add the accounts in Notify.
Okay.
You just use them here. And so
let me make a note of that. So chart of accounts, COA is done in QBO. Let me, before that, put a note. Most things start in Notify. This is where we live. That's what Sarah said. We live in Notify. Except the chart of accounts, that should be done in QBO. So let's go back to where we were here. We're going to want accounts for ABC Supply. Well, it should have that supplies account I just created. Purchases. There we go. Yeah, perfect. All right. Sorry, Taryn. Take over. Take it away.
Yeah, no problem. And so just to give a little bit more info.
One more thing real quick. Keep talking. I just want to create a bank account.
Sorry, I think I lost my train of thought a little bit there. Yeah, we do recommend before people get started with Notify, especially if you're an advisor that's bringing in a new customer. I'm a big fan of the idea of first set up all of your chart of accounts, products, and services in QuickBooks, and then start the sync with Notify. That way, when you jump into Notify, you have all this stuff all ready to go, so you don't have quite as much back and forth sync now necessary. It'll just automatically be there for you.
Gotcha.
And then when you add a new account, sync up everything like this, you sometimes will just need to do a refresh.
So even though I hit get data, I still might have to refresh.
Yeah, and so technically we do have the data, but the browser doesn't know that you have the data yet.
Right.
And so this is our way of kind of catching up here.
Yeah.
And then for what it's worth, once the sync is complete, you won't have to do that, go to transactions, get latest data from QuickBooks since. You won't have to do all that stuff. There's a simpler button in your Notify account.
One of my biggest pet peeves with QBO is once I change the detail type to something other than what it was, it renames the account. And it calls it checking. It makes me absolutely crazy because I always name it first and then change the detail type. Evidently, that's not what they expected me to do. So anyways.
Like QBO tutorial too.
Yeah, no, because it just came up because I'm trying to add the bank account. So now let's go back to the defaults and let's refresh. And I assume it should know that that's now iBank instead of checking. So, sorry, Tara, and then I'll let you take back over.
No problem.
Okay, and there's no save, obviously. Once you've assigned things in the screen, it just remembers them. There it is, iBank. Okay, but I love how easy and seamless that is. Like, I already get it in 30 seconds, like what needs to be done here.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's all, ease of use is a big part of what we try to do at Notify, because especially in the construction industry, there is a lot of software. But one thing that none of them are really doing is making something that's really simple to kind of just jump in and get going with. And so that's a big part of what we do. So in the same light that we have all of our expense defaults here, we do the same thing with income. The one difference is that we don't have a default income account. We have a default income service, very QuickBooks-esque idea, So they usually keep one in your account right off the bat called like services. And then for income account, we just look at whatever the default income account for services is, and it syncs up that way.
Gotcha. So it's really, the idea here is, and I would expect this with construction, is the focus is not on the income accounts, but it's more on the products and services list, the item list in effect, right?
Exactly. That's why I always recommend that you have a very complete list of products and services, in QuickBooks before you start Notify. You can always build it in Notify, and we do a lot of stuff slightly differently in Notify than we do in QuickBooks. But that's always a great way to start. I'll go ahead and just use the same iBank account.
Sure.
And I think for accounts receivable, if I'm not mistaken, it's the same.
Again, we'll need to create an invoice to see AR show up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we do it real quick? I mean, the good news is it only takes 2 seconds.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's do 2 really quick things while I'm here. Let's go to products and services and create something. And we'll just do like demolition, right? We'll do the demo.
And for what it's worth, I imported a couple of them into your Notify account. They're probably not synced with QuickBooks yet, but it'll be the same deal as like with the vendor. I just go in, click edit, and it'll automatically show up in your QuickBooks account.
Perfect. All right, let me go create a invoice. And when I do that, we'll need a customer. So, no thanks, go away. So we'll just call it Always Right. Incorporate. Save, product or service demo, destroy the place. $500,000. And normally, don't try this at home, kids, because normally we're going to be doing all our invoicing in Notify. This is just so that we could get QuickBooks to establish an accounts receivable account in here.
Yeah.
Okay, Taryn.
Did you put money in that? Okay, never mind.
Oh, should I put money in the bank? All right, quick deposit here. Sorry.
There's some digital dollars, a couple of Bitcoin.
I always take really good care of myself on these. Opening balance equity for the opening deposit. We're going to start off with $1 million.
Classic. It's 1 year work.
For me.
Oh.
All right, so now we're going to go back here. Let's see how well I remember. We go to transactions. I click get latest data. It's so fast. I love. Is it fast like that just because I have nothing in my file, or is it fast because it's just fast?
A lot of it, I will admit that a lot of it's because it's like an empty, clean file. It'll slow down when you have a huge.
When you have more stuff, right?
So
I would expect that.
Huge. It is pretty fast though.
But there can even be like a digital clog that happens. You know, if it's a long-standing QuickBooks account that has thousands and thousands of transactions, sometimes we'll kind of just hiccup, and it's another thing that you need a customer support request on. But
gotcha. All right, take it away, Taryn.
All right, cool. So that's all of the necessary part of the sync. Everything else from here on out is just going to be optional for convenience features. I'll go into it really briefly here. Job defaults is where we do class tracking. It's where we set up your default service for time entries. This, is for if you're syncing time with your QuickBooks account, and you want to say, any time that goes into QuickBooks, make sure you tie it into hours. If you use our deposits feature, it's not necessary, but you can say like, deposits just go into my generic services account, and I can't even see what I'm typing.
Oh, so this is for where you get deposits from customers that goes into a liability account because we haven't done the work yet, right?
Well, yeah, and so technically the way it works is that we actually use a deposit service instead of a deposit account. Obviously, we'll look at whatever the services account is, and that's how it'll work because QuickBooks wants to have a product or service on every invoice.
Right. But if I was doing this directly in QuickBooks, I would have a service item called customer deposit linked to a liability account. So accounting-wise, how's that going to get handled?
So
Same way?
You would tie this service in, you would make this default service for deposits be client deposit, which is tied into that liability account.
Gotcha. Okay, so I need to have that liability account in the chart in QuickBooks Online so that when I set up the service item here, I can map it accordingly.
Bingo. And then down here is where you'll actually set your class and location for every job. We don't have any jobs in the system, so there's nothing here. But each job would show up. You set the class, you set the location. That's how we'll sync it up with QuickBooks. And then catalog defaults will actually go through your list of catalog items in your Notify account. You're going to see we have some extras in here because these are the ones I imported into your account just for,
So these are service items, right?
So you see that we actually have products in here as well.
Right.
And so it's obviously pretty simple to see, here's lumber product.
Right, it's got my demo one that I created. Exactly. So this is everything from the products and services list in QuickBooks. So hopefully what people are getting from watching this at home, especially if you're the construction or contractor, is that it's very important that you do this probably with your accountant. So that, because obviously there's a lot of accounting stuff that goes into this that your accountant's going to know that you may not know. So probably a good idea for setup purposes to have a joint session, just like we're doing right now with a product like Zoom, where you have the accountant and the business owner who runs the construction company or whoever's in charge of all the projects, whatnot, doing it together, doing the setup together to make sure that you get this done right. Sarah, what's your experience there? Do you do this with your clients there, or?
Absolutely. It's a kind of a joint thing, a higher level conversation of let's look at your QuickBooks and see how things are before we even turn it on, let's say. And moving over and basically in the background, making sure things land where they're supposed to. So you understand what your products are, you understand what your services are. Those are the items you're constantly going to use. And I tend to extend a little extra time in this area because it's easy to grasp but harder to understand when you start using it on the dashboard sometimes, because you kind of overthink it. So try to keep it simple here. Sometimes I even print this out and say, here, let's just remember this, and then go back over and add it.
Yeah, and kind of as a side note, I mean, you'll notice that we automatically have income accounts set to some of these. These are the ones that we pulled in from QuickBooks. This default income and expense account isn't just a notify setting like we saw with the expense accounts and income accounts. I'm just going to show you what I mean here. So like as I set my default income and expense accounts, I accidentally set my income account to an expense account. Here, let me go ahead and just fix it. We'll call this uncategorized income or services, whatever I get to first. So this is actually syncing with QuickBooks, and it's making the adjustment. Since this item wasn't in QuickBooks, it's actually going to then add it to QuickBooks. I'm going to look at my transactions really quick. I'm going to see some things moving back and forth. So here's an item created in Notify called Lumber 2x4, and then I updated it twice. That's when I switched the account. So if I look at QuickBooks and my products and services right now, it's actually now going to have lumber, and it's going to show me the default expense account and income account are reflecting what I set in my catalog defaults. This is how we control your, really in-depth control your catalog sync and all of your transactions from Notify to QuickBooks. So, you're not limited to this is the expense account for Notify, this is the income account for Notify. So if everyone uses the system right, it actually does a lot of automated accounting for you. It's an awesome process.
Yeah, it ties in nicely.
So we have the basic stuff set up. Now let's get into adding a job. Was this like 20 minutes later? We'll go ahead. Obviously, there's always like that classic like daunting people. Like I showed this to them. Like I'm gonna have to do this every time. I'm like, no, you don't have to do this. Right. And so we'll go ahead.
Can you clone? Well, let's create a job. Let me not get a sidetrack.
Yeah, I know, right?
So basically, when you add a job, it's going to kind of ask you first for a client. This is going to be right from your QuickBooks client database. A lot of these people are the fake ones I set up in Notify. They're probably not synced with QuickBooks. I'm going to just save myself the pain of having to go through and
just use the one I created.
Exactly.
So the job name would be demolition, right? Because we only have that one item so far. We're just going to tear the place down and leave the lot.
Perfect. So,
I love doing that. Don't you just like destroying things?
Yeah, it's very cathartic, right? So we have like our job demolition. If I had the notify jobs to sub-clients feature turned on, when I hit save, it would automatically build a sub-customer of always right called demolition. That's how we would do our reverse job costing, as I'll call it.
And just so people are clear, because of course I'm being funny with the demolition thing, but I'm guessing, and Sarah, you can confirm this because you've done a bunch of these. Normally the job name is, I think the way I would tend to do it is use the address of the location where the construction is being done, right? Isn't that fairly typical? So it would be client, always right, Inc., and then the job would be 123 Main Street.
Exactly.
Something like that.
Very common.
Yeah, that's common. They as it goes in construction, the job takes on a name from the moment it's signed and inked, and sometimes that sticks.
So I remember years ago. Yeah, one of my construction company clients years ago, they develop a name that they come to refer to it by affectionately, of course. So like one of my clients, I remember his project, one of his big projects going on then was on a street called Noble. And so they just called it the Noble job, and that was it. It was Noble.
Common.
And that's kind of the classic. That's the classic flow. You either call it by the street name, call it by the client name, or we're on the demo job. Some people who do a lot of different types of work. Okay, this is the that type of work job. And
job names are really critical in Notify in the sense of when it comes time for somebody using a mobile app to track or receipts going in and ensuring they're correct. So you really want to make sure you find the name that's going to be the project name per se, like the real identifier.
Absolutely. I mean,
numbers and that great.
Project names are actually huge in Notify, as Sarah said, when it comes to job costing, because when you enter a cost, obviously we can generally just enter it into Notify, but then what's the point? You can do that in QuickBooks. You have to put in the name of the job, and kind of off the point of putting in numbers, we actually have a feature now where, like, if I were to say demolition this crazy number, then the next time I add a job, it's going to say, oh, do you want to call this demolition this number +1? And it'll actually suggest that, so you can keep track of your job numbering moving forward.
That's
Nice.
awesome. That's a nice little ad.
Yeah, we had that one a couple months ago, and these tiny things end up making all the difference.
Okay, so I love what I'm seeing here. So these cards are basically where I tell it what kind of job it is. Is it fixed fee? Or is it time and materials? Is it Which one's time and materials?
Other agreement is time and material.
Okay.
So just to give you a quick rundown of the difference here, owner contract is just a fixed fee contract. You do progress invoicing, you submit change orders, and we just show you the outstanding balance. This is the contract, you invoice off of it as you go. GC bid is the same thing, but this does the AIA style invoicing that we're so well known for. It'll calculate retainage. It outputs kind of very similar document style to the G702, G703. Maintenance contracts are very specific towards service work. This is if you have a contract that says like, we return to your job site once a month, we invoice once a quarter, we'll schedule the appointment as we go. We'll actually keep track of that in our service jobs, not our contract jobs. So you know when it's time to schedule your follow-up, when it's time to invoice the client. Then other agreement, big selling point is time and materials. But just to give you more information on how custom these other agreements can get, they can include fixed price items like we need to charge $1,000 on signing. They can also include what I'll call like a monthly retainer that says, every month we charge $100 until the contract's up. It can also include time and materials. Again, it can be cost plus, however you want to look at it. But then aside from all of that, you can even have something that's custom billing. We charge per unit, per square foot, per whatever it may be. And then when you're invoicing, just as like how many of those units you want to bill for, and it'll automatically build these invoice documents for you.
Awesome.
Now, when it says job costing style, this is kind of a Notify invention that we set up to control the amount of data that goes into each job and the job flow, how much complexity you want it on it. The quick, rundown of these. Simple is the idea of, I just want to quote a price to the client, and I want to see how much I spend on this job. That way I can get a quick little, cost versus revenue profitability analysis. Advanced mode, very similar flow in that you start with the bid. You don't bother with budgeting. You just, here's my quote. But if you bid this out in different line items, then your job costing isn't just at the job level. It's broken down into those line items. So if you quote the client, demolition, drywall, framing, painting, then you get to track your cost to demolition, drywall, framing, painting. So you get that extra layer of detail here. Professional mode is kind of the classic Notify. And so you're asking kind of differences in Notify, in the past years or so. We used to only offer professional mode because we really do support and want to promote this process of don't just quote a price to your client, estimate the cost first, then you quote your price as my estimated cost plus markup. And now that's going to be the best way to quote a price to ensure that I end up, getting that profit that I want to see on this project.
So if I choose this, I can still do a fixed fee contract. It's just it's got the budgeting element included first. Okay.
Exactly. The other things are all optional fields. We can track bid due date for your calendar, job colors for scheduling, sales lead and project manager for running reports. We can set this to an address that's going to be for our built-in time tracker. Go ahead and choose anything here.
Oh, that's really cool. It brings up the Google Maps.
Yeah, and we just show you this to confirm it's right. If that's not right, or if it's not in the system, you can say, I cannot find this address, and just drop a pin on a map. Now, I'm going to go ahead and save job. Again, if this was a situation where we're using jobs as subclients, hitting save job is where you would start. It's where we would create the subclient. And so what it does is it pulls us into plan track. And plan track is Notify's project plan. It's the most dynamic part of our system. It's kind of what makes Notify. This is where we budget the job. It's going to be where we track the actual cost. We can do our scheduling through here. And we can kind of just see where the job's at any point in time. And we break it down to what we call job phases. And so these job phases are going to be named based off of catalog items in your system, just so you can have some consistency between these. It's kind of related to the classic cost codes that we used to see,
So this has nothing to do with like phases the way architects describe phases, or
No, these are phases to say like what work do I have to do. So like I need
right,
to,
like usually you'll do the demo part first, and then you'll do the actual construction. Oh, right.
and so the way the budgeting works, we always give you the ability to say $2,000 materials budget. You know, we don't want to rob you of that simplicity, but we also, you know, in again our preferred process, give you the ability to break it down into a list of materials. So for whatever
Right,
reason,
be specific and say, I need this much wood, I need this much in paneling, I need this much in, you know, framing, whatever. Yeah.
And if I could spell, this would definitely look a little bit
Oh,
better.
you know what? Somehow you've accessed my Windows search thing. Here, try it again. And I'll be back in 1 second. I need a drink.
No problem.
Well, the additional feature that you guys added was copying stuff from spreadsheets.
Yeah, and just to, you know, give a little plug on what that's all about, you know, while I have a quick moment here. But the reason we do this is just because so many of our contractors are trying to do this transition from their Excel sheets to Nullify. And so now you have the ability to copy not just, you know, overall phases, the original feature, you know, let me copy my phases, labor, material, subcontractor budget in. You can actually use a takeoff software that says, here are the materials you need. And you can copy and paste the materials right into the phase, and it'll say, like, okay, here's your material budget. And so that's a neat little feature that we generated to make the budgeting process a bit easier.
I cannot wait to use that.
And so that's kind of how we get a materials budget in. You know, let's just call this, you know, I like to use the number 2,000 for material budget.
So Sarah, as the accounting professional who's helping clients with this, when you get to this part, how do you facilitate this with the client? Do you have them go in and do it, or do you get the information from them and then you do it, or what does that look like?
I prefer similar like this. We do it jointly together. I look at before we even begin this, I ask them what are their current estimating processes and what does that look like? Is it a spreadsheet? Is it pen and paper? What am I looking at here with you to help get this? Then we basically what I love about this program is it helps define how you begin to think about this in a more granular level. Also pull out big picture level too. So if it's in a spreadsheet, we start combing through what are the most relevant pieces that you want to use? What are the stuff that you never use anymore? It starts to clean it up as you go through this process.
Right.
And I prefer the client to drive, but often there are times where you have to co-drive.
Right. So now, and Taryn, back to you on this. So I have materials here. I have a quantity of 500, but it doesn't look like there's anywhere to describe the units of measure, like if that's linear feet. So do I just put that in the description where it says materials, or how do I describe the units of measure?
As of right now, we just include in the description, you could say like per stud.
Got it.
And that's how we'll work with it now. We'll probably look into the ability to, you know, include a unit name in the future. You know, it's requested often enough, but as of right now, it's just, you know, 500 units at $4 a unit. That's the estimated cost we set up in the system. Again, we'll sync that with QuickBooks. And now I have my materials budget. For labor, we hit this enable labor button. This is another thing that we had to add. I think.
Oh, enable subs is enable subcontractors, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if you're hiring a subcontractor, it's a little bit easier.
Right, because other labor would be payroll, so that you wouldn't. Well, so how would you put that in here if you want to just say, all right, I have these employees, you know, these foremen who work on payroll, and I want to kind of cost them out, or there's a labor budget.
And so we do give you the ability to write in the lump sum budget. It's always an option. But what you do is you break it down to what we call roles and resources. Roles are the idea of I'm going to say I need a labor.
Oh, like we saw earlier. Okay.
So it pulls in an hourly cost. We default to the average if you didn't set a budgeting rate. You can always say, you know, we call it 33. We don't bother with the cents. But that way I can just say like 40 man hours to complete this.
Gotcha.
And then I'll go ahead and grab like foreman. You see that we actually have the option to choose the person. So if I don't want to say foreman, I just want to say Paul.
And it knows what Paul's role is because we've assigned a role to him, so it'll pull up a rate based on that.
Bingo. And so that's just kind of how we
override that too, by the way, those hourly costs if you need to. You can override.
Right.
And that's really big for if you have like a prevailing wage or something along those lines. For subcontractor budget, you know, I can only write in a lump sum. You know, later on I can show you some estimating tools to automate that. But this is really just a way that I could say, you know, we'll probably have to spend about $2,000.
So when I enable subs, that's still, even though it may not be a sub, it may be that I'm budgeting just for the internal labor cost. That's still where I go for that, right?
Yeah, so subcontractor budget is only for situations where you're hiring someone that isn't hourly. They're not one of your employees, but they are working on the job site. And basically what we give you the ability to do is say, I want to select who the sub is going to be. This is not a budget item quite so much anymore as, we have to hire Ernie's Electrical Contractors. This is their final contract value, and we can actually upload a copy of the contract.
Mm-hmm.
And it opens up this PO that we have for reference whenever we receive a bill. We log a bill against a PO, kind of classic process here. So if I ever reference PO number 2, it's going to say, Notify's going to pull up, okay, here's Ernie's Electrical Contractor's $2,000 contract. This is the remaining value.
Okay, so I can only have one subcontractor then, or?
Per phase.
Per phase.
You can have as many phases as you'd like.
You can have, like, if you do HVAC, if you do framing, you can make those subs, you can make those phases and not turn on materials and labor, and you can turn them straight into subs, and they'll change the color.
Okay, so what if I'm hiring, what if I have nobody on my payroll who does demo? So I'm hiring 5 subs to do the demo. I just create 5 phases so that I can...
In a situation like that, you could always, of course, have 5 phases. But if it's a situation like that, 9 times out of 10, they're actually hiring 1099 hourly guys, in which case we can actually set up your laborers to be 1099 vendors instead of employees.
Okay.
So that, and we'll sync their hours with QuickBooks as well. That being said, if you did have them coming in on a lump sum and they're individual independent contractors that aren't working hourly, I can always just enable subs, set up another phase, then I'd probably name each phase after the guy who's doing the work. But that's just how we can get a little bit more of a detailed breakdown here.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Or I just kind of add it all up together and create one line item for the total of it.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to pick up 5 guys at Home Depot on my way to the job site, right?
Yeah.
And I'll just...
And you want to have just like your subcontractor that you can call Home Depot guys. Then
5 guys.
Right, 5 guys.
Just 5 guys. Love that. I can see your brain just thinking away here.
A lot of people will have 5 guys as a vendor, but I think they mean the burger joint.
Yeah, I think so too.
So,
no, but and of course, Sarah, I have to keep it clean and politically correct, somewhat politically.
Yeah, no, it's true though.
So this is really where we're creating the whole budget for this phase, right? So we created a phase named demo, and that's what we're working on here. So when I'm done, I would click Save Changes, and then I can add another job phase, or just click Add Another Job Phase. I see that down at the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. So you can add as many job phases as you'd like. It's all, there's
and I love this. I can plan ahead on a spreadsheet and then just copy them in from there if that's what I did. So I bet Sarah does that. She probably does her planning. Do you?
My clients do. I don't. I just haven't. I haven't been able to. I'm planning on using this feature. It's fairly new, and I haven't been able to use it yet because most everyone has given me pen and paper.
Which we can't integrate with yet.
Yeah, close.
I was like, oh, okay, let's just roll with this, and let me.
Maybe if we chat with like Neat or Receipt Bank, we can find a way to do that, but it's not there.
Gotcha.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say the other feature that's really nice is say like you build out this entire beautiful thing, and it's something that's going to be the standard, the format or the template.
You can clone it or make a template out of it.
And you name, well, yeah. I loved what Taryn said to me once early on. He requested that maybe I just make a shell of a job and name the template master template, and I use that so I don't get confused, because the templates are, as savvy as they are, they do name them to the client, to the customer that you're using. So if you know you're going to do that same job somewhere else for the same client or something similar, that's great. You remember what that template is, but.
Yeah, and so what Sarah's referring to, and that's actually a very great point, is where it says use plan as template here. Go ahead and click it for this not very exciting template. But now if I ever create a new job, you'll see a big bar that says, do you want to use a template? And then when I click it, it'll say, okay, here's your template, demolition 381239. And you can automatically have the job start at one phase called demo with this materials budget, this labor, this subcontractor budget. So you don't have to re-enter that stuff every time. It kind of just automates the whole thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's a really cool, slick, fast feature.
Yeah, and that's just kind of the budgeting side of Notify.
And this is cool, though. So then I assume next where you're going is you're going to click Create Contract, and it's going to kind of know how to build a contract based on what we've just done.
Exactly. And you see that we have two options. For what it's worth, we give you the option to ignore the project plan. A lot of people will find a situation where they'd rather just, have their budget and contract separate. It's not a recommended flow. It's an option. But when I use project plan phases, it's going to, first of all, pull me into this screen where I'm building a proposal template here, and we do a lot of neat templating stuff. If you have client information in the system, it'll auto-populate this, but I could tell I'm sending this to Seth at
Always Right Inc.
This is my contract number. If I get a PO number from the client, I'll plug it in here. We can let them know the estimated start date and end date, and this will all be stuff that we can output onto your proposal documents for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that we have a line item right here called demo. And if
that's
we had
the phase we created, right?
Exactly. And if we had 100 different phases, we'd have 100 different line items.
Mm-hmm.
And I can always write in a price and say, yeah, we'll charge $7,000 for this. But we also give you the option to do is say, well, take my estimated cost and add a 50% markup. This little lightning bolt says just kind of quick markup everything at 50%. It'll even let me, if I have several phases, do just materials, just labor, just subs. But now it quotes a price for me. We're not, tied.
Can we do 100%? 50% is not enough. No, I'm kidding.
We can. And, for what it's worth, I could say, 50% on labor seems a little low. Let's call it 100% for labor. Now it quotes a price. I don't like the way these numbers look, so I always come in and say, call it 9,500.
Right, just round it up, make it even. Yep.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Looks like that way it doesn't look like I'm kind of pinching for individual pennies here. And we can do things like,
what's brilliant about this, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need to say this because this solves a huge problem from QuickBooks Desktop that now that I'm aware of this, I'm going to use this to beat them over their heads when they tell me you can't take contractors. And that's what they look and sound like too. They say, you can't take contractors into the cloud with QuickBooks Online.
That's his new thing now, Taryn. Watch out.
So anyway, that's my beaker face. That's my beaker face. Here's the thing. So in QuickBooks Desktop, what I would have to do is create this estimate with all these items and all this detail. And no way, unless I create groups, right? But then I got to create new groups for each contract that I got to do. This is beautiful because this just takes all the detail that I did and just rolls it up into one simple thing. So I don't have to sit there explaining every line item to the client. I love this.
Yeah. And if you had multiple line items in the plan and track section, then you could actually merge them into one on the contract. Just a nice way to simplify it for the client's presentation.
I'm so glad you said that. That's a big one.
You can see that we can, and this is an optional feature. A lot of people will choose not to do this, but you can pull in the labor and materials from the project plan. And
right.
Say,
you can show them the details if you wanted to.
And we can do things like hide pricing, whatever you need to do. This is just how we'll present it. You can enter additional details, where.
Oh, that's cool. Wait, hold on. It's opening up all kinds of screens on my side.
Oh.
Hold on. Hold on. Let me just take over the mouse here for a second.
He's like, oh no.
Somehow you access my run command from Windows, and somehow you keep accessing my Windows button, like this guy right up here, but on my other screen. And then so it went there, run, and anyway, here we go. I
don't know how I'm doing it because I'm on Mac, but
it's probably some kind of a keyboard combination that's translating from the Mac through to here.
Oh yeah.
So I'll give them this.
I love that. We're gonna destroy this place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just to get some more information across to the client. For what it's worth, you can add line items that aren't part of your project plan. Another place you can copy in from spreadsheet.
So if you have standard language that you need to put out on every contract, where does that go? Down here?
So we have this terms and conditions box, and in your admin section, you can actually add your terms and conditions into the system. And then once you have them in your admin section, there's a button here that says import terms and conditions, and it'll just reuse them every time. And then just really quick, and this isn't a super important thing, but I'll just show it. We have a couple different output styles where you can say, only show the total amount of the contract. Don't show me how much we're charging per line. And I can also say that we use a schedule values invoice, kind of inspired by the AIA invoice, but not the actual format. Mm-hmm. This shows a situation where it's great for progress invoicing. It doesn't just show how much you're invoicing. It actually breaks it down.
No, that's what I'm saying.
It shows you a breakdown of this is how much is in the contract. This is how much I'm invoicing out of each individual line, and this is how much is remaining in the contract. And so you get this.
Oh, that's just a sample schedule of values. That's not the invoice we're in the process of creating. I was going to say, it's got different information.
Yeah,
okay.
no.
So here's the thing, and I think you may have answered this, but just so I'm 1,000% clear, I know that what my clients that I've had in the past I've always wanted is really they want 2 line items. Here's what we're charging you for labor. Here's what we're charging you for materials.
Yeah, I mean, if you set up the project plan with 2 phases called labor and materials, it'll do just that.
That's how you do it. So if you know that's how you want to
good.
bill, then you create a separate phase for labor, a separate phase for materials. Look, my logo.
Look, the other thing too is if you don't want to bill like that, you're doing fixed costs, you're doing a general scope and inclusions, exclusions, you still build your phases that way so you can allocate them correctly yourself. So you can, because that's how the person's thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all just a matter of preference. And so anyway, it actually builds this proposal document for you. This is the stock proposal document in Notify. We set this up as the default in your account just so you have something to use right off the bat.
Right, and then you can customize it.
Exactly. Right. It's something that we do on our end. It's, it gets a little tricky, but we get really flexible with this stuff. So, you can send us like, this is what we use, and we'll try our best to recreate it. We have done some pretty incredible stuff in the past with cover pages and all kinds of cool stuff.
There's even a YouTube video on some examples of it.
Yeah.
So what's the YouTube video channel, by the way? Is it youtube.com/Notify?
I think that should work. I know I thought I set that up to work once, but yeah.
No, all right. So we'll search YouTube for Notify. And
I type in Notify on YouTube, it'll obviously be the one and only Notify. Not
once in a while you hear Dan.
Yeah, the earlier videos are all Dan. But yeah, complete guides the
Notify channel
winner.
Oh, so you never customized the URL on this? Tell your guy to do that.
Yeah, I thought that I had done it, and I think what you did is you went to YouTube/Notify instead of YouTube/channel/Notify. If I'm not mistaken.
No, but that shouldn't matter because it should stick the channel in there. Because like if I go to my Nerd Enterprises, that still works. So anyway, not really that important. Obviously, it's easy enough to find. I just want to make sure people see and get the idea that want to go to YouTube and search that. All right, let's get back to business here because I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Yeah, no problem. And so just to move along a little bit. So yeah, we can download the document. You can email it out. Technically, you can send it out for digital e-signature. Clients have mixed feelings about not signing a document by hand, but
especially in construction, I would think they would kind of like real estate. They tend to be a little old school that way. Like they want.
In my experience, commercial work, not okay. Residential work, they love it. It's really professional. People love to see it. We even show you the total here now, just so as you
so cool.
Yeah, if there's like some discrepancy, maybe you rounded wrong, you can be like, whoa, that's not the price I wanted to quote before you send it out. I'm going to go ahead and just make it active in this situation. When a project's active, it means you can invoice. It means you can track cost. We'll start, I guess, with the invoicing side just because we're here. I usually start with the job costing since, we're Notify, we cost jobs. But
the first thing you want to do once the contract is signed, just send them an invoice for the first part.
Yeah, absolutely. Get
now in construction, and I don't know if this is a state thing or if it's everywhere. I can't technically bill them until the first hammer drops, but I can bill like a portion of it. I think like up to $2,000. That might be a California thing. But I can't actually bill them for the work, but I can get a deposit from them of, I forget what it is. It's like $2,000 or up to some percentage. So
I believe for California, I could be entirely wrong, but it
probably is a California thing because we're a little crazy like that.
I think it's like up to $1,000 deposit or 10% of the contract, whichever one is
greater. Less. Okay.
Greater probably makes a lot more sense, but I think that's how the invoicing rule works as far as California goes.
Gotcha. So anyway,
up a feature in the account that'll automatically generate a deposit invoice for you. Again, there's a lot of stuff that has to be enabled on our end, and mainly the reason we do this is it's not the most user savvy user friendly stuff that we make. And so we say like, okay, we'll enable it for you based off your request, but kind of pending that you'll do some training and learn how to use it before we kind of just turn this feature on that could end up making too many invoices, could end up overbilling the client. We just want to make sure that people know what they're doing here. When I hit invoice now, and I'm going to just kind of roll through this, it'll actually pull up the outstanding items that I have with my client just based off of what we approved in the contract. So all I need to do is plug in a percent. Like I'm going to bill the first half up front, especially in residential work, 50% up front, 50%.
Pretty standard, yeah.
Yeah. I can do it in dollar values if I want. So if I want to say, well, not technically 50%, but the first $5,000, I can do that. Or, I can go way over and say 50,000. When I confirm this, it'll actually pull it into my invoice screen here. I can mark off which items are taxable, and my tax rates will sync with QuickBooks. Obviously, shell account doesn't have any accounts, doesn't have any
tax rates. Yep.
When I finalize this, now it says send to QuickBooks. It's going to send it in as a new invoice. We'll see that in a second. What I'm actually going to do, and I got a little warning here. Last number was used in QuickBooks was 1001. And I can actually change that here and say, okay, then let's go ahead and call this 1002.
Right. Oh, because I created that one invoice. That's right.
Exactly. I always recommend that you start your Notify invoicing far away from your QuickBooks invoices because if you, let's say I had put in 1001 here, Notify wouldn't push this to QuickBooks because it would say, well, there already is a 1001. We don't want to make that mess. And so we kind of just block it.
Right.
So I'll send this to QuickBooks. I'll also email it to the client. We generate these documents for you. Another thing that we customize, so if you don't have any preferences, this will always be changeable. So as soon as I hit this, now it's in the process of sending it to QuickBooks. Looks like it made it out okay. This is just.
And I assume normally we'd set up the customer with an email address, so it would put that in here, right?
Exactly.
So send it to Seth@SethDavid.com. This way I can pull it up on screen and show what it looks like.
And so I'll send it. Did I get all this spelling in here right? It's really small.
Yep. And then in the message, put, you pay me now.
He's going to tell you what he wants every time.
I assumed caps. There was an
Yep, exactly. You pay me now.
And so that sends out what it's worth. I'm gonna go ahead and also plug this feature that we're a big fan of. With the invoice that you send out via email, that email can have a link that says pay us via credit card or ACH, and they can plug in their credit card or ACH info and pay you right through.
So what service are you using to process those payments?
We're using PaySimple.
Okay, so bottom line, you'll collect the money through PaySimple and you'll drop it into my account. I just have to link it all up. Okay. Exactly. And what does it cost me anything to process payments that way?
I always forget what the exact percentage is. I think if it's standard cards, it's slightly less than 3%, and if it's Amex, it's slightly more.
Okay, yeah, well, Amex is usually 3.5, and others are usually 2.3.
Yeah, so okay, standard rates, nothing too special.
Gotcha.
It's a good feature. ACH is 55 cents per transaction, regardless of price.
That makes sense. Now, can you limit them and say they can only do it via ACH? Or
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Especially
is that in the admin section?
It's actually when you're sending it out, the prompt to include that link when you're set up with PaySimple will say, include credit card, include ACH, give them the option.
Right. So now we're ready to look at the exciting part, because now that we've got the contract out and signed and we've invoiced them the first 50%, we're ready to start getting the work done, which means we're going to get some bills and we're going to need to job cost that stuff and make sure it's all working right.
Yeah, absolutely. And just I did the quick kind of sidetrack to here's my invoice 1002.
So you didn't even have to go back and tell it to sync everything. It just pretty much syncs seamlessly right away in real time.
Absolutely. Anything from Notify to QuickBooks is automatic. The other direction, so like if I receive payment on this invoice in my QuickBooks account, let's go ahead and say, I can't click the button because it's outside my screen.
It's off the screen. You have to click it, Seth.
Wait, which button? The receive payment? Well, no, we're in the receive payment. It says amount received. It took us straight in there. So you want to click save and close. Okay.
That's what I was looking for. Okay, so when I have this marked as received, now when I go back to my Notify account, this is when we do need to hit the sync now button. Anything from QuickBooks to Notify, we run the sync on 2 occasions. One being when you click the sync now button, but also if you ever log into Notify, every time you log in and you are labeled as an accountant, we automatically hit the button for you just to make sure everything's up to date. And so if I, once this import's complete, I'm going to refresh this screen just to kind of show you kind of the automation of what we're doing here. But it's actually going to show you that this invoice is no longer outstanding, but it's actually closed and fully paid.
Okay. Now on the other side, if the customer clicked your link and paid me through Notify, then Notify would sync that payment received back over to QuickBooks, I assume, right?
Exactly.
And then does it put it into the bank account or does it put it into undeposited funds?
So you get to set it up to whichever bank account is the default payment account for clients.
Which we did. We set it up as iBank earlier. So, and I guess it's not like you'd have to worry about the situation where you got 3 checks and it had to go through undeposited funds, because if it's being paid electronically like this, each one funds by itself. But are fees taken out, is it funded net of the fees, or are the fees taken out separately?
Good question. I to the best of my knowledge, I think it would actually push over, it would show it as fully paid in Notify, obviously. And then on the QuickBooks side, it would show the amount that was taken out via fees.
So, okay, so it would come into QuickBooks. The invoice would show fully paid, but ultimately it would record my deposit net of the fees, so that I don't have to worry about, like, well, how do I get from the gross payment to the actual net received? It's all, that's all taken care of. Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. I can always double check on these things, but
okay.
Okay.
All right, so now how do we start getting expenses on the books? My guys came, they're ready to destroy the site, do the demolition. Somebody gives me one of my subs gives me a bill. What do we do?
So I have a bill here, and I'm gonna, we try to keep it as simple as possible. Have a bill, go to bills. I'll add a new bill in the top left corner. Add new is always going to be up here. And I have that subcontract open with my electrical contractor. I can click his name here, and they'll show here's all of your open contracts right now with this sub.
I love that.
That being said,
I love that you have the upload bill document option, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if I say, this is actually for PO number 2, I don't want to have to sift through all the contracts I have with him. Now I get to sort it out to just that one. Again, you can upload the document. We'll keep it on our cloud-based server. You can always jump back into Notify and grab it. I could say, like, he's billing me for $1,000 out of his $2,000 contract. And when I submit this, same idea. We'll actually send it to your QuickBooks account. And the payments are always synced in both directions. So I can use QuickBooks to write him a check, anything like that. It'll come back to Notify and close out. I know why this is a sync error. I bet Ernie's Electrical Contractors was never pushed to QuickBooks.
Yep.
And so now you get to see how we do a little bit of customer support surgery. I'll come in here, Ernie's Electrical Contractors, edit the vendor, and then syncing, cool, save.
Oh, so as soon as you edit it, it says, okay, we need to sync this then.
Exactly. And so now when I come back to my QuickBooks transactions, it's going to show me complete vendor, create, notify Ernie's Electrical Contractors. That's awesome. So now this wrench button says, I think I fixed what was wrong with this transaction. So try it again. I'll go ahead and wrench. It's in process. Clicking transactions will refresh this feed. And voila.
This was awesome.
And just another little hidden feature in Notify. This is an awesome way to see what's going back and forth between QuickBooks and Notify. If I click on $1,000 to Ernie's Electrical Contractors, it'll open that up in Notify. You see how this underline's complete? If I click here, little hidden trap.
It takes you right over to the transaction in QBO. Assuming you're logged into QBO, that'll work. That's amazing.
You are logged into QBO, but yeah. All of a sudden,
that just accidentally happened to us recently, and I love that little feature.
Yeah, it doesn't work with every type of transactions, but bills and invoices for sure. So it's a nice way to kind of speed up and run around.
That's really cool.
Slick little updates you guys are doing.
And then same idea here. If I were to make payment on this, I
just realized something. I don't have the ability to track costs by customer turned on in here, but it's still being done in Notify, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always tracked in the notified job. And I'm going to show you that in just a moment here. But, I just recorded payment. If I hit sync now.
Now, somehow I think I missed it when you created the bill. Maybe I looked away or something. I don't recall you picking a job.
So I didn't have to pick a job because I actually entered a bill against a contract.
Against a PO. That's right. That's right. So from the PO, it knew. Okay. That makes sense.
Do you want to enter a bill against the job, or do you want to enter a receipt, a purchase?
So you could do both, actually. So just let's say it was a bill, because bills seem to be kind of the preferred entry point. I can say bills. I could see this is outstanding right now. If I rerun this screen, it's actually going to update that because we just pulled in the payment. And I'm going to have no outstanding bills.
Wait, how did we pay it?
I marked it as paid in QuickBooks.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And yeah, I can see my received payment, or no, received payments backwards. I could say record payment, but that's why this is closed out. I could say show history. It'll show me my outstanding bills. But let's say I didn't have a PO on a project, which is, very often the case. I can actually come in and let's use iSupply since they're already synced up here. And basically I can say, we received the invoice on the 9th. This is the invoice number and it is due on the 12th. We can also use your payment terms if we pull them in from QuickBooks. I'll add an item here where I'll say, all right, this is for the demo job.
There it is.
What is this? Destruction. I can't even see if I spelled that right, but they charged me, big fan of 77777. That's the total amount of the bill. We can always add additional items. So, we're talking about, what if we have one bill versus multiple jobs? I'll just go unallocated since we don't have another job in here, something else.
Right.
But you can see, Seth, in this situation, who on the 4, the project name is first, the job name, and then the contractor.
And then it has the contractor. Right.
So that's why the naming is really important, and it kind of, if you're not good at it, it forces you into it. It's a great practice.
Mm-hmm.
So same idea. We send it to QuickBooks. It'll show up under the vendor in QuickBooks. It'll show up in my expense transactions, all that good stuff. But on the Notify side, as we enter all this, I'll go to my contract jobs here, and I get this, here's my profitability on this project. That's how much I've invoiced. I can see how much I've billed. If I click here, it'll say, and this is how much has been paid. This is the total material cost. This is the total subcontractor cost. It knows to delineate or kind of differentiate between the difference in here based off of what had a subcontract associated with it, rather than if I just open enter a loose bill, then it's a material. If it's a bill against a subcontractor PO, it's a subcontractor cost. The work in progress number we're running here is one of the more clever things we added recently in Notify, where we take percentage of completion of the project by saying, how much has this project cost me versus how much did I estimate? That's my percentage of completion. Take that times the contract value. That's how much we should be invoicing. Now, since I'm not very far along on my project versus the budget, this negative work in progress number is saying I've technically over invoiced about $1,800 out of this contract. And so I'm a little bit further ahead in the invoicing than I am on my cost. So I know that this profit statement is a little bit
skewed, but I get it. This is basically looking at the way in accounting we look at contracts and we say the cost incurred to date divided by the expected total cost is the percent complete, and then times that by the contract value. That's how much we should have billed. This is saying that number is coming out $1,800 higher than it should be because we haven't incurred enough costs to justify this billing.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just how we get, material, labor, subcontractor cost in. This is how we're calculating revenue. Real quick on the labor cost side of things, nothing I'm going to do here is going to sync with QuickBooks since we didn't set up employees. But we can enter time in a variety of different ways.
Now, Taryn, I thought I heard some rumors that you're looking into integrating with some of the time tracking solutions out there, like ClockShark, possibly. Is that true?
Yeah, so we're looking into a couple different things. I mean, nothing's official yet. We've chatted with ClockShark, and we're trying to decide the best approach to this. We have no real official statement on what we're going to be doing. But if nothing else, the possibility of pulling time from QuickBooks would be pretty awesome. We do provide a mobile app, and it does all the basics, check in, check out. But obviously, for the companies who their main focus is time tracking and getting information into into your weekly timesheet from the smartphone app. They're going to do that kind of stuff better than us. And so we really want to be able to say, if your priority is mobile app time tracking, you should use a mobile app time tracking app. If you're trying to get job costing data in, that's where we come in. We're the app where you do your budgeting, your bidding, your tracking, your invoicing, and then if it comes into time tracking, we have a tool for that. It's not our priority, so we kind of built something basic that works. But we're looking to play a little bit more nicely with a couple of the time tracking apps that are out there.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
So I think pulling time from QuickBooks would definitely be the most widely accepted option here. But
that way, people could use whatever solution they want. It syncs to QuickBooks, then you can pull it from QuickBooks. That would make sense.
Exactly. But nothing's official yet, so we'll see how it goes in the future. Looking to have a little bit more of a formal answer at Scaling New Heights time.
Gotcha.
And so when I enter time, I can enter it as my own timesheet. I'm Seth. I want to add a new activity. And we have some scheduling functions that I won't get into too much depth on, but this is for more manual entry. I'm working on the demo. I could say, yesterday, let's see how many hours. I worked for 8 hours. And I could write a description of my work that day. Destroyed stuff.
Now, wait, how did it know which job this was for? You picked demo, which was the service item, right?
So when I hit add new activity, this is the same type of head that you'll see.
Oh, no, you selected the job. I'm sorry. It was the job demo that you were selecting.
Exactly. And so when you submit the timesheet, that's what pushes it up for review.
But now, so what about the activity code? Because, we use demo as the example of the job name. But normally I would have 123 Main Street, and I might have the catalog item called demolition. So
you can search one of two ways. You can either type in demo, and we'll pull up the name of the job. We'll filter for the name of the job. We'll filter for the client name, and we'll filter for the different activity names.
So that demo, So that demo is the activity code within the job demolition.
Exactly.
Okay.
Where the other option is I could say, I'm on job 38123. And it'll pull up all of the different activities underneath that. I can choose that this was for demo. And this is what we call the Foreman View, where instead of entering time, one person at a time, it actually pulls up everyone. So I can do it per day on each job. So here's the people who worked on Tuesday. Let me enter their time for them and submit it. And as this time is submitted, it'll automatically cost the jobs based off of what we have in this type of head here. For what it's worth, if you're using our smartphone app, it will give you the check-in, the checkout with the location at both check-in and checkout time. It'll total up the time. It'll show you, how far they were from the job site, and we can actually, in our scheduling, show you the exact location. And then this all goes to review time. So whoever's in charge of timesheets just kind of comes in for the day. You choose the items you like. You can always make adjustments. I can do things like allocate to a different job or reject these entries, adjust them, delete them. But when I approve them, this is the gateway between Notify and QuickBooks. As soon as these are approved, we'll push them to your QuickBooks account into the weekly timesheet for each employee. Again, this works with 1099ers too. And so now when I come back to this job, I'll get a more updated cost on this. Now all of a sudden my labor cost went up because, Seth is rocking in a solid $1 million a year. And so his 8 hours on site really kind of put us back there. But
it was really factor in. So it's warning me, I guess, that is it going to warn me now that we're going to overrun our costs or?
So we've maxed out our budget here, which means that we should be invoicing the remainder of the job. That's why my work in progress is equal. We invoice 50%.
Right.
And so I can actually come into this project, and if I want to see, I bet it's going to say whoa, you are way over labor budget. It'll
show the totals on the top, right?
This is what happens when I fiddle around too much.
Wait, hold on. It's doing it again.
It's certainly a system getting confused as a result of my Mac, but this is just showing me a little bit more about how I'm doing versus my budget and each different type of worker here. And I can see the cost versus budget, and I'm $4,000 higher on my labor budget than I expected. That's clearly where the issue lies.
Is it John Lennon?
It is not John Lennon. In fact, if I hit view current cost here.
Oh, look at that. It's advisor.
Yeah. So here's my $4,000 of advisor budget cost that I didn't budget here. But I can see the status of the subcontract, a whole bunch of stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the last thing, I'll just ignore this thing. This is it trying to give me an autosave version of the plan, even though it's active. It happens as a result of kind of weird internet from the screen share and stuff like that. But I have my line items here. I can always add change order. This is, again, going to use our type ahead. So, like, let's see. I'm going to use that demo. And I could put in a price here. For what it's worth, this little catalog ID is saying that, hey, you're using one of your products from the catalog, and it knows that it's demo. But I can always, as long as that's there, I can call it whatever I want. So if I want to call this, I can't spell the word destruction, I guess. But if I want to call it destruction, as long as that catalog item's there, it's going to carry over into QuickBooks as demo. So I can also charge whatever I want here.
Interesting. So you can call it whatever you want and still leverage the actual item.
That's
I like that.
interesting.
And you can actually send out your change orders for e-signature too, just get client approval on them. And then, let's go ahead and submit our final invoice on this. I'll say invoice now. It's going to ask me for what percentage of the initial demo I want to use. And then it's going to ask me for how much of the change order I want to invoice.
Just bill it all.
Yeah, we are done.
And pay me now.
Exactly. Pay me now.
You pay me now. You pay me now. You've been here for 6 months.
I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
I think
Taryn,
a little bit of everything here today.
no, this is perfect because we've kind of seen the whole process through. I mean, obviously a very simplified version, but we went from having nothing here to having a job, billing it, entering the costs and the time, and then ultimately invoicing it all out. So in a way, we covered the whole range of a job in a sense. I mean, I know it gets much deeper than that, but this was great.
Yeah.
And by the way, Taryn, I wanted you to know, I meant to tell you this at the beginning. We actually have a new name for you. So I was talking to Sarah the other day, and we started talking about you because we were talking about Notify. And in just talking too fast, as I often do, especially right after I've had coffee in the morning, I sort of combined your name, Taryn, with the name Notify, and I called you Terrify.
It wouldn't be the first time. I wasn't going to call you out on it earlier, but you emailed me and auto-corrected to just being thanks terrible. I'm like, what?
Oh, did it really?
It's okay. It happens all the time.
That's hysterical.
I was saying, Seth will attest that we have terrible customer support here.
That's hysterical. Now I got to go look at my subtitles.
Now he's got to go look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a classic. That's actually one of the nicer things I've been called working here. So,
taking your name in combo with your place of business.
Yeah, I'd also like the listeners to know that this is what Seth considers a half-hour conversation at the end of the workday.
Yeah, yeah. You're probably
I see it now. Yeah, thanks, terrible. That all sounds great.
Just thanks, terrible. Oh, okay.
And that was from my mobile. At least it says sent from my mobile, so you knew it was the autocorrect from my phone. That's hysterical.
Pretty often. I've actually set my my iPhone signature to say pardon my spelling errors and brevity because it's impossible. But
it's really challenging.
That's right. Yeah. So a 30-minute call with me ends up being a 90-minute call, just for the record. And
it's late for him.
What else? That's right. You should be drinking a beer by now, or a glass of wine or something.
Getting around to it.
What else do we need to know real quick in closing?
I think I showed you everything I want to show, really, as far as stuff goes, as far as job costing goes. We have some more detailed stuff around project management, scheduling, that kind of stuff. But I'm for the
we can only do so much in a half hour.
For the accounting audience, I think we covered the best job costing stuff.
No, this is awesome.
To it.
And we got to get you on my Friday morning broadcast again. It's been too long. It's been over a year. So
I'm ready for it.
That's right. You remember
Oh, yeah.
flexing the muscles.
Absolutely. No, I'd be happy to join in again.